I lit my incense before this. This is Winnie. People can do limitless while they're pregnant. That's how I deal with hate. Either that or I just tell them to go fuck themselves. I have no idea how long I've talked. Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're doing something a little different today. If you couldn't tell, we're at my coffee table in my living room. It's a gloomy day in Austin, and I figured this week we would change it up and just do some questions. So I put up a question box on Instagram and I picked what I feel like is a reasonable amount of questions to answer. Let's see if we get to all of them. I'm gonna try to not be super long-winded on everything, and some of them are like super short answers. Some of them will be a little bit longer, but we're gonna have some fun today. If you see smoke coming across the screen, I lit my incense before this. Incense is probably my favorite thing. It's gotten to the point now where it feels like a Pavlovian response for me because I light incense when it's like time to work in the morning or when I'm cleaning. And so I feel like I smell it and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Incense is burning over there. No like contraband or anything. I have coffee. Pretty much all the animals are over here. And we're gonna start, the first question we're gonna start with is, can we do a story time of all your fur babies, how you got them, and how long you've had them? This one is gonna be a longer answer. I'll start with my first girl, Lucy. She is 12 years old and I got her when I was 23. And I got her at a time in my life when I should not have. I was not in a place to be taking care of an animal. I was barely even taking care of myself, but I had decided that I just really wanted to have a dog. So I started applying for dogs on Pet Finder. And in Massachusetts, it's actually really hard to adopt an animal. That's a longer story to go into. In Texas, you can basically just walk into any shelter and they'll give you a dog or a cat. Not the case in Massachusetts, so I really didn't think I was gonna get one, but sure enough, I got approved for Lucy. I didn't even ask if I could have a dog in the apartment that I was living in. I was living with like all of my guy friends from high school. It was like a temporary thing and they were like, yeah, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It was not fine. I asked the landlord and they were like, hell no, you cannot have a dog in there, which was also hilarious because those guys would have literal blowout keg parties in that house all the time. The floor was permanently sticky from beer. It was disgusting. Like I said, it was a temporary situation for me. I was bartending in the city and I needed a place to live. And yet we couldn't have a dog in there. So that was funny, but I promptly had to tell my parents that I got a dog, and not only that I needed to move home and I needed help with the dog and I needed to commute in for my job. So that's what I did. And Lucy honestly was afraid of everything when I got her. I made all of the rescue mistakes because she was transported up from the south. So I didn't meet her. I didn't know anything about her temperament, like nothing. And I ended up getting really lucky because she's such a good girl, but it was a battle at first. She was peeing on everything. The first thing she ever did, they handed her to me. I was walking her to my brother-in-law Ian's truck. Shout out Ian. He drove me to go pick her up and she peed all over me. And that was really an omen for the first few years of her life because she would just pee. If she would pee if she was scared, she would pee if she was excited, she'd just pee on everything. So we've come a long way since then. She has been through, I don't even know how many moves with me, relationships, breakups, full cities. So she is my ride or die OG girl. And yeah, that's Lucy. She's still with us. She's still kicking. After that, I adopted June when I got to Austin. So Lucy was really my only animal for a long time. And then when I got to Austin, a few months later, I decided I wanted a cat. And so I adopted June. She's a tortie. She's outside right now. And she's very spicy. She is such a bitch. I love her so much and she loves me so much, and she doesn't really love anybody else. She loves Tim, but she doesn't really love him as much as she loves me. So I like that about her. She's my girl. And June and Lucy kind of became fast friends. Not that long after that, I would say a little less than a year later, I started thinking that I wanted to get a second cat. So my friend Hannah and I went to Austin Animal Center, and Hannah basically should have a punch card at all of the Austin shelters for the number of people she has convinced to adopt animals. It's actually insane. It's gotta be in the double digits. So we go and there's no cats there for whatever reason. I think there was like 1 or 2 cats and none of them were a good option for me. So we were leaving, and on the way out, the way the lobby is set up, there's enclosures for like a few dogs that you have to like walk by. and Winnie and her sister were in one of the enclosures, and we just happened to kind of peek in, and she looked up at me with the saddest little puppy eyes, which if you guys watch my vlogs, you've seen the puppy eyes before. They are Hall of Fame puppy eyes. And she looked at me and I was like, let's just go in and visit them. And Hannah obviously is a dog person too. So we went in and she just put her head right in my lap and leaned right up against me. They did not tell me that they got their spay surgery that morning. And so she was a little bit more docile than her actual personality. But she's such a love bug. Winnie, come here. This is Winnie. Yeah. She's a very, very sweet girl. But I did her DNA. I've never done Lucy's because I honestly have never really cared when it comes to my dogs. But when I brought Winnie for some training, he suggested that I do that because it just can just be helpful when it comes to like learning what their needs are. And it turns out Winnie is 100% Catahoula leopard dog, which is like a working dog. So that makes a lot of sense for her. And so ever since I've done that, I've been a little more curious about what Lucy's DNA is. But she has a brindle coat. So, I mean, there's limited options. She could be a mountain cur. She could be a plot hound. She could have some pit. I don't really know, but maybe we'll do her DNA and find out. And then next came Phoebe. Speaking of Hannah rescuing animals, Hannah was working in Dallas and she saw a little white fluff ball run across the road. So she got out and picked it up, and it was a little white cat that was holding on for dear life. She was 1 pound, so skinny. She had like little fleas. She had ringworm. She was just sick little kitten. And so she brought her in, and when she came back to Austin, she at the time was traveling a ton for work. And so she asked that we watch the kitten for the amount of time that she was gonna be gone. And Tim was like, we're not keeping this cat, okay? We're not keeping the kitten. Don't get any ideas. And I was like, okay, you're right. We have enough. 2 dogs, 1 cat, that's enough animals. And he always thinks that I'm lying when I say that I was like fully okay with that, because he's like allergic. I didn't want to force it on him. It was still a little bit early in our relationship. And so I was like, okay, yeah, we're not going to keep it, but we're going to give it like a safe place to, you know, get rid of her ringworm, let her gain some weight, and then we can find a good home for her. And guess who fell in love with the cat? Me, obviously, but also Tim. I was like, okay, we have to start thinking about, you know, like what we're gonna do with the cat. And I wish I could remember exactly what he said, but he was like, it was something to the effect of like, well, we'll talk about the cat. And I was like, what? And yeah, after that, it was like, okay, we're keeping her. And that's Phoebe. She's our scaredy cat, but she's so sweet. She's like, when she wants to snuggle, she's the fucking best. She's a Lynx Point Siamese. And then last but certainly not least, he's sleeping up on his flower right now. We have Gus. Gus was Adeline's birthday present. And that was another one that surprised me because I've been talking about getting another cat for a year. And because I'm like, what difference does it make? We already have 2, whatever. And Tim always rolls his eyes. And then Adeline's birthday came up and we didn't really have anything that we knew we wanted to get her. And he was like, what if we get her a cat? I was like, say it again? And he also knows me well enough to know that once he unleashes me like that, it's game over. So like he knew that even mentioning that we were gonna be getting a cat. So that's how we ended up with Gus. He was screaming at the top of his lungs in the shelter, trying to climb out of his cage. And he's turning out to be, he's an adventure. He has so much energy. And if you are not paying attention to him when he wants to play, he's biting your feet, he's biting your fingers. He requires some attention, and he honestly terrorizes June on a daily basis. It takes 0 social cues from her, and she can like inflict no damage. It's like she'll hiss and she has like kind of a scary growl, but she won't do anything to him. So he's not scared of her. So I try to keep him from using her as like a play toy, but it's hard, and she just like won't actually lay the smack down on him. But him and Phoebe are playing now. He's such a little purr box. He's really sweet. He likes to snuggle. I wish I could show you guys his little sleepy face right now, but I don't want to get up and move. So that is all 5 animals and all of their stories. Okay, next question. This one's from Sarah, I'm guessing her name is. The username is a little funny, but besides working out, what's another thing many might not know that you also love to do? I feel like that is a good segue from the animals, because I feel like people know this, but my animals are basically my full-time job outside of my full-time job. I also really enjoy gardening and maintaining my plants, and I really enjoy like home projects when I have the time to do it. I definitely get a little bit overwhelmed with like I enjoy interior design. I'm not an interior designer, but I enjoy like kind of getting stuff for my home and creating a vibe, but it's definitely more difficult than I like to think, you know, because I like buy a bunch of stuff and then of course none of it is like cohesive. So yeah, animals, gardening. I really love to hike and like be outside in nature. I kind of decided recently that I would really like to start doing the US national parks, especially considering like who knows what's going to happen with them in the next 4 years, unfortunately. So I really like to hike and get outside. I like to water ski. Water skiing is a like little skill of mine. I'm not like that great at it, but I did learn when I was a kid. So I do that every summer. I can fish. I really love fishing, but if you give me like a glass of wine in the evening and a book, I'll throw a line out. So that's kind of it for my hobbies, I think. I'm gonna lump the next 2 together. There were a fair amount of questions about how Tim and I met. And then the second question is, how do you navigate having a partner in recovery? Have you attended any meetings like Al-Anon? So I'll start with how we met. Tim and I met at work. So we both started working at a gym here in Austin right when it opened. And it opened before it had, because it was like a private gym and it's not like a corporate environment, they opened before they had like all of the equipment and all the stuff that you needed. Like they just kind of had baseline stuff. And so it was kind of a little playground for us. It was a honeymoon period when the gym opened where we were all just like having a ton of fun. And we were there all day most of the time and just like hanging out together, going to lunch. Like all of us maybe had a couple clients, if that. And so we got to spend a lot of time together. So Tim and I became good friends, and we were friends for, I want to say it was like 6 months before we started dating. I feel like sometimes people were like, we were friends first, but it's like we were friends for a month. We legitimately like built a friendship before we even kind of discovered that we wanted to date each other. I don't know. When I first started there, I think because I have to give Tim a lot of credit, and it's kind of sad that you have to do this, but like Tim really loves and respects women the way that he does men, or probably more than he does men, in a way that like when you interact with him, you don't feel like he's only interacting with you because he might be romantically interested in you, or like that he's laughing at your jokes or whatever because he's interested in you, or that he only has to the time of day for like hot girls or whatever. Like that's just not Tim at all. Like he really enjoys being around women. He thinks they're funny. He can be friends with them. And that's like what I felt when I first met him. I was like, oh, we're gonna be friends, because like he's fun, he's funny, he's silly, and he is like pretty non-threatening to me. And so I just like felt super comfortable with him right off the bat. And so we just were like good friends for a little bit. We didn't really like hang out socially that much outside of the gym because we didn't need to. We spent so much time together. I remember I had, if you guys know the app Marco Polo, I was like using Marco Polo heavily for a little while, and I made him download it when I went home. I had a wedding. It was like a long trip that I was going to Boston, and we were talking like the whole time on Marco Polo. And I remember having a thought to myself, like, do I like him? Because I found myself being like looking for, you know what I mean? Like, you know, when you're like waiting for a text from someone that you really like or something like that, which I had not felt like that before. And that's how I felt when I was away. And then when I came back, we started hanging out socially a little bit more. And he invited me over to his house for like, he was just gonna make dinner. And we were sitting on the couch, like watching TV afterwards and like just chatting. And I was like sitting on the end of the couch and he was sitting in the middle. And I just like swung my legs over his lap just to kind of see how he would react. And again, to his credit, he didn't miss a beat. He just like put his arms over and just like kept going. I was like, okay. And then after that, I think it was the next day, and we didn't address it. We didn't say anything about it. It was just like, I was just testing the waters. And the next day he asked me what I was doing that night. And we had hung out like multiple nights in a row. And I just looked at him and I was like, are we gonna talk about this? And it wasn't all like a straight line from there. We dated for a little bit. We stopped dating for a little bit. And then, you know, there were some trials and tribulations, and it definitely like wasn't perfect from the beginning, but here we are. You know, we made it work. There was a lot of, I think, honestly, like meeting somebody at work is not always ideal. And like, he had a lot of reservations about that. I think because like, it felt like a really big opportunity for him. And there was just a lot of like, well, you know, if this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. And I was kind of the camp, like, why are you getting so wrapped up in like the what ifs of it all? And it took a little while to get over that, but we made it. And yeah, we've been together, I don't know, 3.5 years now, a little bit more than that. And then when it comes to Tim's sobriety, he has been sober for 7 years. He had just had his sober birthday on his actual birthday. And so he's been sober the whole time that we've been together. He's been sober the whole time that I've known him. And it's just a part of like who he is to me. I think there were things about his sobriety that I was like had questions about, I guess, or that I was like a little concerned about because I'm not sober. And at the time I was like kind of enjoying going out a little bit more, but I was also, you know, I was also single. I was like still in a new city, whatever. And I think in my head, like, oh, am I gonna be able to like do all the things that I want to do with somebody that doesn't drink and doesn't like to go out and doesn't really, you know, like his lifestyle is likely a little different. Also, he has a daughter, so that was like a whole nother thing. But when it comes to his sobriety, I have been to meetings with him on many occasions. Sometimes it's just that we're out together and he's like, I want to go to a meeting. Like, do you want to just come? And I've been like, when he's gotten a chip before to like celebrate his sober birthday. I've never gone to Al-Anon. I think that, yeah, I don't know. I think that we like do enough work and like talking about it within our relationship that I don't feel like it's something that at all negatively impacts our relationship. In fact, I think it positively impacts our relationship a lot, because typically somebody that's in AA or somebody that's working some kind of program, Tim also has done a lot of therapy, which is another thing that I really appreciate about him. But like, somebody that's running a program is usually working on themselves and reflecting on their decisions and who they are as a person. All right, we're gonna shift gears to more like work related stuff now that we've gotten the personal stuff out of the way. The first one is, how do you structure a typical work day, and do you have fully free days and weekends? I do not have fully free days and weekends. I think you probably could make it so that you mostly do, but with social media, it's really difficult to do that. In my opinion, you would have to be like just more on top of it than I am. I think you could probably get away with like batching some content and then maybe just like posting that, or like scheduling a post and not even having to go on your phone. But to be honest with you, like having to do some editing or some posting or like whatever it is that I have to do on a weekend really is not that big of a deal. It's not something that bothers me. I don't love having a ton of it. And there are definitely some times where I have to remind myself to step back a little bit, but I really do a good job on a day-to-day basis. Like when the evening comes, for the most part, I tend to put work away, because I just think there has to be a time where it shuts off. And maybe that's 9 o'clock at night. I don't know. But for me, I definitely am like, okay, I've done enough of being on my phone, being on social media. I've done enough work for the day, and I'm gonna put that away. And now I'm gonna, I'm gonna take the dogs for a walk, or Tim and I are gonna watch a show, or I'm gonna pull myself away from that. So typically when I'm on it, what I try to do, there's travel, there's other things that get in the way, but like a typical week when I'm working from home. On Mondays, I have a training session at 11:30 every Monday. And so usually Monday mornings, I spend like doing ladder programming and kind of getting the program ready for the week, because each week we put new programming into the app. We do voiceovers and we do videos for that programming. So although it's like a progressive program and like you're going to be doing a lot of the same things, each week it is new voiceovers. Like we do that work every week. And that can take anywhere from like across the board for all of that work. I would say it takes about like 10 hours, if I had to guess, with everything. So I try to do all of the programming and get all that done on Monday morning, depending on how much I have to do, that will happen. And then I'll post something on social media. I have my training session. And then after that, I come home, I eat lunch. I have a virtual training session. I have one client left. People ask me this all the time. Do you do like virtual training, or do you train in person anymore? No, I don't. Shout out Jules. She's gotten grandfathered in. She's just a good friend of mine at this point, and I've been training her for, I don't even know, like 8 years or something like that. And so we just like shoot the shit for an hour. She trains in her house. So I do that for an hour, and then usually I get on my walking pad for that session, and then I will stay on it for an additional hour or so after that to do more ladder work. And then after that, I try to be done. I will do some like editing or social media planning, and then that'll be it for Monday. And then there's some iteration of that for the remainder of the week. And basically what I've done, this works best for my brain, is more of a checklist and a priorities list than calendar, if that makes sense. I've tried the calendar, it does not work for this little noggin. As much as I would love it to, I work better on like, okay, let's like knock these things off of the list. And if this needs to be pushed to a different spot, okay, no big deal. Because where there are times that I am not being super productive or not like in a good workflow and distracted, there are equal amounts of times where I'm really in it and I can get more done than I had originally planned. And so usually that's how it balances out. So all my ladder work is done by Thursday night, and then all of the social media planning and shooting kind of gets put into there. Obviously the beauty of filming is that I just basically have to pick like maybe 3 workouts from the week to film. And then I'll decide if there's any other types of content that I want to film as well while I'm at the gym or otherwise. And then I work that into my agenda. Stop being shitty, but also stop doing shitty. Like the series that I do, I'll usually be like, okay, I'm going to be doing this exercise anyways, or I have some extra time, so I'm going to film this and edit it that day. So usually things are scheduled out in chunks, but I do work on Saturdays and Sundays. Sundays are actually like a really big work day for me. I usually will do like my cleaning reset, edit, post it, and then I'll do more work like planning the week. So yeah, I would say typically content creators and influencers probably don't take any days off, but you're not doing hard manual labor, so it's really not the end of the world. We have a few more questions that are like ladder involved, so we'll stay on that train. The program you provide on ladder, is that what you do? I want to train like you. This is a really, really common question that I get, or comment that I get, and I understand where it comes from. I need you guys to know that like doing exactly what somebody else does when they do it is not going to be the thing that gets you the results that you want or not. So when it comes to training like me, my ladder program, they do train like me. Everything that they do, I have done or I am doing. I don't do the program at the exact same time that they do it. And the reason for that mostly is that I have a coach. And in the same way that like doing your own workouts is setting a good example for people and letting people know that like, you know, we're doing the same things, I really believe that having a coach for me has leveled up my own coaching and my own training in a way that I probably never could have done on my own. I am really, really proud to have a coach. I'm proud that I'm someone that's willing to say that I learn things from other people and that like, you know, he's head and shoulders smarter than me and more informed than I am about training. And I'm 100% okay saying that because I learn something from him almost every training session. And so like the value that I get out of that is, in my opinion, the same value that I'm providing to the people that are training with me. Because the more I can learn, the more you can learn. And so it's not that you're not doing the things that I'm doing, we're just not doing them at the exact same time. And I always say that to people where it's like, don't worry, I will not make you do things that I have not done myself. I have suffered through all of this, I've done all of this. And there are some times where we will be aligned in our programming, but that's just not always going to be the case. And the other piece of it is that Ladder, my limitless program, the last time I checked, had about 18,000 people on it. And you have to imagine that the majority of those 18,000 people train in a really busy commercial gym with access to limited equipment, I would say. Especially if you're going at busy times, like you're not gonna be able to go from one machine to the next, to the next, to the next. Like you're probably gonna wanna grab a squat rack, use that for when you can use it, go to the dumbbells, maybe you'll be able to get a cable. So that is the way that I have to think about programming. Whereas for my own programming, that's just not my reality. I'm able to use the gyms that I go to and the times that I'm able to go. I'm very privileged in my job that like I go to the gym during really quiet times. So like I can use a pendulum squat, I can use a hack squat, I can use all of these machines that like I would say less than 5% of the members on Limitless have. If the question is like, why aren't we doing these things? You are doing some version of them. You're just doing them in a way that works for as many people as we have on the team, because that's like what's front of mind for me, is making it as accessible as possible while still being able to get the training that I want to provide for people. So you are doing what I'm doing, we're just not doing it at exactly the same time. I got a few questions about whether or not people can do Limitless while they're pregnant. Yes, you can. If you have been training beforehand, would I recommend that you, upon falling pregnant, as the Brits say it, that you start doing an intense training program? No. But if you're someone that's training right now and you get pregnant tomorrow, you can continue training on for a pretty significant amount of time the same way you were before. As you get further and further into your pregnancy, you're going to have to make some modifications, obviously, as your belly gets a little bit bigger and things change physiologically, to just make sure that you're being safe. The heart rate recommendations, all of those things are typically pretty outdated. More and more doctors are catching on to the fact that like, if you're an active person, you really don't have to worry about those things. But also what's beautiful about Ladder is you can really take Limitless as far as you're comfortable taking it. You might feel sick, there are things that probably will happen throughout your pregnancy that will dictate where your training journey goes during that time. But we also have a fully dedicated prenatal team. You can pop over to that team anytime you want and run the prenatal program. It is like completely pregnancy safe. All of the modifications, all of the things and information that you need to know as a pregnant person are there for you. That's a great option once you're kind of past the point of being limitless pregnancy ready, and you can go onto the prenatal program. So that's a wonderful option. And then the last Ladder question was, how did you get involved with Ladder? It's a huge dream of mine, which is really cool to hear. I have to tell you guys, because when I signed on with Ladder, nobody knew what the fuck it was, okay? I'm sorry if I get a little long-winded with this, but I do think that it's an interesting story to tell with like how I got started with Ladder. I knew one of the coaches, Lauren Kansky, who was one of the first coaches on Ladder, and in Ladder's infancy, it was a totally different company. So if you guys know what Playbook is, if you have any experience with that, Playbook is basically a hosting training platform where like if I have clients and I want to, you know, give somebody a program or I want to sell a program, then I can go and bring it to Playbook or Train Heroic, and that is one type of training business model. And they just learned very quickly that that wasn't going to work for them. And so they pivoted to ladder teams, which is the model that we have now. That also looked very different in the beginning. There was a lot of like, you know, what's going to be important for bringing in coaches, like how are we going to make this work and how are we going to grow it? And initially the strategy for them really was to bring in coaches that had social media followings. And so that's kind of where I came in 2022 after like I just got to know Lauren over social media because we were both like really into kettlebells at the time. And I remember when she advertised on her Instagram that she was training on ladder, I just went and I checked it out. And we were the first to do voiceovers and to do it like in a step-by-step way, the way that they were doing it. And I remember opening it and being like, if I was going to make myself a training app, this is almost exactly what it would be. It's impossible to really get that much closer to having a personal training experience, but still being able to provide it to a lot of people. And so I just kind of took mental note of that because at the time I was doing PDF programs. First and foremost, PDF programs are such a good option. Like those served me so well. They take a lot of work on the front end, but on the back end, they just live forever. And if they're a good quality program, people can have access to them forever. If you're a coach that's like just getting started on social media, like doing PDFs like that, I would highly recommend starting there. It's proof of concept for like if you wanted to go to a ladder or another training app and show them that A, you know how to program, and B, that people are buying your program, I would absolutely start there. And so when I was starting to prepare to go for like a subscription-based model, I started just shopping around like what my options were. And I reached out to Lauren and she was like, well, would you be interested in like taking a meeting with Ladder? And I was like, yes, absolutely I would. And yeah, I was just like, okay, like let's do this. Like I was definitely scared. I didn't know what it was gonna look like, but I knew that it was the best app. And I knew that it was the experience that I wanted to give to the users, to people that were training with me. And that was of the utmost importance to me. And so I did it. And God, the company has grown and changed so much. And it's an incredible machine at this point. So now the way that it works is I'm one of, I want to say it's 19 teams now or 18 teams. And the team has really been able to build out sort of a visual of what the app needs to look like in order to fill as many holes that the consumers are looking to fill. So when it comes to a training program, it's like, okay, we have people, they call them quadrants, but we have people that are at home. This is their age group. This is the equipment that they use. We have people that are at the gym. This is their age group. This is their gender. This is their, we have people that are the hybrid. We have, it's like, we need to be able to, it's not necessarily about the coach with the biggest following, or it's not necessarily about all social media. It's about like, if you come to Ladder, you know that the training style that you are trying to train is available with the equipment that you have and like the location that you're looking to do it, the gender of the coach that you would like to work with, all of that stuff. So that is sort of how it's really, really flourished, which has been amazing to watch. And then it also has created a really good environment for us as coaches, because I know that I am like the strength and conditioning coach. I'm the at gym program, intermediate to advanced strength and conditioning, and I fill that role. And there's going to be other girls that are gym programs, but we're not competing for the same person. So it just like makes it a really wonderful way for us to all root for each other and not like compete with each other in a way. So that's how I got involved, but I think that hopefully gives you a little insight into how the coach selection process works. Is it's like, sure, you're like, Having social media literacy is important. There is a marketing aspect of it. There are pieces that are really important, but there are some coaches that are really social media heavy, and then there are some coaches that are just like experts, and they might not have a huge social media following, but they bring coaching to the table. So I would say, I might be biased, but like making sure that you can coach is going to be like the number one thing, and then you can kind of build from there. All right, the last category of questions is kind of like training related and then a little bit of social media. So I'm gonna try to like rapid fire my way through some of them because some of them are pretty quick answers. Do you train 7 days a week? No, I do not. On good weeks, I lift 4 days a week, and then I do cardio outside of that. I try to sprint 1 day a week. And I do really as much like low intensity, steady state cardio as I can. I really prioritize getting my steps in via dog walks or my walking pad. So 4 lifts, 1 sprint day or like high intensity cardio day, and then low intensity cardio and steps throughout the week. Somebody else asked like, how often are you sprinting? So I answered that question. Once a week is usually the sweet spot for me. Honestly, like if I'm gonna shift gears and try to get faster and like really legitimately sprint train, I would bump it up to 2 days a week. But lifting is just really my priority right now at this stage in my life. And that might change, but right now it's once a week. And I would say if you're trying to get into sprint training, start with 1 day a week and start easing yourself into it. Lower efforts, not like max effort sprints for a while, especially if you haven't been doing it or haven't ever done it. And then, if you're really trying to get into it and get faster, you could probably go up to 2 days a week. Okay. Can you share how your body changed so much in the last few years, I'm guessing they meant to say, workouts, nutrition, etc. My body has definitely changed a lot in the last few years. There are a few things I attribute that to. Number one is just like some muscle maturity, and like my physique has been built over the course of many years, but I will say that it has changed a lot in the last 5 or 4, I would say. And I do think that getting my coach made a huge difference because there was just somebody there holding me accountable to not only staying on the same program, which is something I preach about all the time, but when you're coaching yourself and you're not running other people's programs, it gets really easy to just be like, oh, I'll do this while I'm interested. And then there's going to be nobody to hold me accountable when I go to the next program, when I really should be like running this and reassessing and, doing it the right way. I would very much go in and out of doing that, like being really consistent in training the way I know I need to train, and just kind of doing things the way that I felt like doing them at that time. So getting my coach and having somebody like holding me accountable to, my training cycles and also to like my effort. I was somebody, I would say, who knew how to work really hard and knew how to train hard, but I would only do that in particular contexts, if that makes sense. Like I wasn't training close enough to failure on a consistent basis with like a lot of my accessory lifts and stuff like that. And I really do think that has made such a huge difference for me, and just really embracing a little bit more bodybuilding where I wasn't doing that in the past. And also you guys have to know that like in 2020 and on, I could not strength train. And so that was a big reason why I was like as thin as I was. Like I had more muscle mass before 2020 because I was training in a gym. In 2020, the only thing I had for a long time was a Peloton bike and 2 kettlebells. That was it. I think I had a 12 kilo kettlebell and a 20 kilo kettlebell. Those are the only things I had for months and months and months. And so I lost a shit ton of muscle because I was just doing a ton of cardio. I also was going through a breakup at that time. So I lost a lot of the muscle that I had built over the years. And so the change from like 2020 to 2025 is stark. But I would say that, yeah, like that period in my life was like a dip. So that's important to note too. From a nutrition perspective, I have definitely gotten I've gotten in a better rhythm with nutrition, I would say. I have stretches of time where I'm not great. And to be honest with you, a default now, I used to struggle a lot with binge eating. I've said this before, like I didn't know at the time that it was binge eating. I didn't even know, like I didn't have a label for it because I didn't even think that it was a problem. I didn't think it was a bad thing. I thought it was just something that I did. I would like restrict and then I would binge, and it was just like a really bad cycle that I didn't even know was a cycle until I was out of it and I looked back and realized sort of how toxic that that behavior around food was. And so I sort of got out of that cycle, and then I learned a lot more when it came to nutrition, and I prioritized actually hitting a protein goal. I went through the one and only bulk that I've ever done because I just wanted to see what it felt like. I wanted to see what I could do. And it was super helpful for me to understand like what it actually takes to like gain weight and how much I need to eat in order, like if I ever want to go down that route again. I'm definitely someone that's more comfortable at my maintenance calories, but like pushing past that, I would say is uncomfortable, but it was really, really good for me. And so like learning that like food is fuel and food is a tool, and it's something that you do have control over. And it's also something that you don't have to let control your life. You just kind of have to be consistent and keep it in check. So training close enough to failure, embracing a little bit more bodybuilding, keeping sprinting in my routine, and being consistent with cardio. Yeah, protein goal. Being a little bit more on point with my nutrition, and also just know my genetics play a role. Okay, like my body is shaped the way that it's shaped, and I'm able to build muscle the way I'm able to build muscle, and I've always had a fairly like lean physique, and some of that is genetic. So just keep that in mind as well. How do you know you're in the right calorie deficit for you to not go into starvation mode? Starvation mode is not really a thing the way that we like traditionally thought. If you are really under eating and you're like really lean, then you can have kind of like an inflammatory response to food where you like hold on to more water weight. It does lower your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. So like as you eat less, your metabolic rate is going to go down over time. You eat less, you weigh less. Yeah, you're going to have to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into that deficit. That's why people don't stay in a calorie deficit for like their whole life. It doesn't make any sense. You're not going to go into starvation mode. The problem with going way too deep into a calorie deficit, it just has a host of other issues that it causes. Like you'll probably notice some GI distress, some bloating, like a lot of these things that people attribute to like inflammation or like trying to find food allergies and shit like that is really just that you are under eating, and that can cause a lot of these issues that people see. So the key to finding the right calorie deficit is you have to at least be keeping track of your metrics for some period of time. And this is what doing a bulk taught me, was that they're taking some power out of like the number on the scale and just kind of seeing it as a number and it's just information to you really changed things for me, because it's just like, okay, is this working or is it not working? Am I accomplishing what I want to accomplish or am I not? What do I need to change if I'm not? And so in my case, where I was trying to gain weight, every day I would weigh myself in the morning, I would record that. And then if I looked at the average of those weights over the week and I wasn't gaining any weight, that means that I was not eating enough calories. So we got to go up in calories. The same thing applies for when you are doing a cut or if you're trying to lose body fat. So I would not recommend doing that if you have any issues with EDs, or if you know that you could get into a little bit of a spiral with weighing yourself and counting calories and stuff like that. You're probably going to have to find a different strategy, but it is the easiest and most like straight and narrow path to fat loss is find your calories, eat like that for a week, and then see where the scale goes. If it goes down, stay there. Okay. Once it stops going down, then you're probably going to have to go down in calories a little bit more. and a little bit more. But that's why we only do that for a certain period of time. You're not gonna just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into a deficit, or you're gonna feel like shit. Okay, so starvation mode, not exactly a thing, but we can go a little too hard on the deficit in a way that's just like not really gonna benefit you in the long term. Last two questions, both of these are like social media related. The first one is, does working in the fitness industry impact your body image, and how do you deal? Of course it does. Of course it does. Working in social media, working in fitness, being in an environment where I spend a lot of time not only looking at women who are in the top 1% of like most fit, most beautiful, most, you know, like these are the influencers. These are the people that are kind of like the outliers. So I'm not only looking at them, but I also work with them. I meet them. They're my friends. And most of them are, you know, as beautiful and as fit in person as they are online. And that can fuck with you for sure. Like the idea of like touching grass is really, really important. That is why I put such a significant effort into having other things in my life that are not fitness related, not body related. Also just like getting out into the world and interacting with people that are not in the fitness industry. I love like being inspired by other people that are in my industry, but I also love putting it into context and realizing that like I am so healthy. I'm so grateful for my body. I'm strong. I'm capable in a way that most people in the world cannot say. And like, you know, like sometimes you're on social media all the time and you're picking your body apart. And then like you go on vacation and you're on a beach and you're like, oh, like these people aren't thinking about I'm not thinking about their body. I'm not like, who the fuck cares? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it really does not fucking matter the way that your body looks. So I think just touching grass and giving myself a little bit of perspective it goes a long, long way for me, but it's impossible not to get wrapped up in that. And then the other question was, how do you deal with negativity on social media as someone with a big following? I deal with it in different ways. I think stepping away before you react to things is really important. That took me some time to learn, because no matter what, when you're seeing negativity about you or you're seeing negativity online in general, there is a central nervous system response that happens in your body. Like you feel it, your heart rate goes up a little bit. You're like, especially if I'm getting like a hate comment from a man or something like that, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna tear this. There's a little bit of a thrill to it. But I find that when I'm elevated like that, taking a step back, maybe I write out the response that I want to say, or maybe I, allow myself to go there a little bit, and then I save it in my notes. And then I decide whether or not I actually want to respond to that after a few hours of doing something else and forgetting about it. And usually I don't even want to engage, because yes, there is hate on the internet, and yes, there's pressure. There's sometimes a feeling like you can never really get it right, no matter what you do. And that is true, because the nature of the internet is there's always going to be someone or some people that are telling you that like they don't agree with what you're doing, or they don't like what you're doing, or that, whatever their opinion is. But for every opinion like that, I've been fortunate enough to build a community of way more people that are so positive and so amazing and so much fun. And so like paying attention to those smaller, fewer voices is silly. Even though it's what we want to do. We want to fixate on the hate. We want to fixate on the negative things that people are saying, because you're like, wait, no, like that's not me. What do you mean? Like, or like it's a man talking shit about me. Like, I'm going to tell him to go upstairs for dinner because his mom's calling him up from the basement. But you guys know what I mean. Like it gets really tempting to get lost in the sauce, but it's not benefiting me in any way. So, I pick and choose the negativity that I want to respond to. I pick and choose the things that I want to engage with and not engage with. And there are definitely some times where like I think I have a healthy willingness to come back at people when I feel like I'm pretty justified in what I'm saying or doing. I stand really strong in like my morals and my ideals. I I'm not right all the time. I'm not perfect. I haven't always been perfect. Like there are so many things that I've done and said wrong. I'm someone that's like learning on a regular basis and trying to do better. I'm very, very acutely aware that like the expectations that people have for you, you're never going to all the way meet them. So you just have to be comfortable and confident with who you are and what you believe, and that you're like trying to be a good person, or that you're trying to be good at your job, or that you're trying, that you're trying to do good in the world. Like if you really genuinely believe that and you're really trying and you're doing your absolute best, there's nothing else that you can do. So if you're not satisfying those people, you're not satisfying those people. So that's how I deal with hate. Either that or I just tell them to go fuck themselves. That's gonna be the last question. Thank you guys so much. I hope that this was fun for you. It was fun for me. I have no idea how long I've talked. I feel like this video is gonna be a lot longer than I had initially intended, but I had so much fun answering your questions, and we'll definitely do this again. And obviously, like regularly, we'll be doing vlogs on a week-to-week basis, but I feel like having a little FaceTime and getting to know each other is really fun. So make sure that if you like this, if you don't already subscribe, and follow me on Instagram, on TikTok at Kelly L. Matthews, and I'll see you guys next time.